Hello and welcome back to these Excel lessons in Teacher Joe's classes. Today we are going to learn about absolute and relative cell referencing as used in Excel. Now first of all, to define what an absolute cell reference is that it remains constant when a formula is copied, whereas a relative cell reference keeps changing based on how you copy a formula. For us to do that lesson, I have a worksheet that is already prepared. It has items, quantity per set, import price in USDs, and then total import price, equivalent in Kenya shillings and tax in Kenya shillings. Now, to demonstrate the work of an absolute and a relative cell reference, I'll start with the relative cell reference. To get the total import price, we use a formula. We start with equals, then we say it is price per set multiplied by the quantity per set. Then you press enter. So if we check on the formula bar, it shows C4 multiplied by B4. And that gives us the total import price in USD. If you click and drag, it keeps computing for each of the cells. And where there are no cells, if you drag, it gives you a 0. But if you put a number here like say 5, and here you put another number like 7, then the answer is computed automatically. So this has used an absolute a relative cell reference, sorry. It has used relative cell referencing. Now for absolute cell reference, we are going to convert the equivalent in Kenya shillings. So to convert dollars into Kenya shillings, we multiply, because $1 is, we are given the rate here to be 105. So we get the total import price times the equivalent in Kenya shillings, which is 105. So D4 times C1, then if we press enter, it gives us the equivalent in Kenya shillings. If we copy this formula, what will happen is it copies the preceding value, the values below. Right now it gives us null value because if you see the highlighted cell, it has copied cell blue, that is D6, and multiplied it with cell C3, which is highlighted in red, which is an error. So for us to convert that and to make sure that the constant, the USD rate here is referenced constantly, we have to make the formula an absolute. And how you do that, you double click again to see the formula, and the cell that we want to make absolute is cell C1. So we select C1, and then on our keyboard, listen, on our keyboard you press F4, 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 then that makes the change. It puts a $ before C and a $ before 1. In other words, a $ before the column and a $ before the row. Then that makes that cell to be absolute. Then once you press enter, and then we copy the formula now, the computer now is able to compute, and each of the values here, the reference is C1 because it's already made an absolute cell reference. So that is how you make absolute cell reference. We'll do it again with this other example. We want to compute the total tax in Kenya shillings, which will be is equals to this amount multiplied by the tax, which is 16%. If we press enter again, it gives us the tax. And if we copy the formula downwards, what happens? It gives us wrong values, because it is, if for example, if we double click this, you see the blue and the red highlighted cells make reference to the wrong value, particularly the red value. So to make it absolute again, we come here, we double click to access the formula, then we make C2 absolute. We select it and we press F4 on the keyboard. Now while we are at it, the F4 is a toggle. If you press it once, it makes the cell absolute. So $C, $2. If you press F4 again, it makes the row absolute. We'll explain that in another lesson. And if you press F4 again, it makes the column absolute. If you press again, it removes absolute and makes it relative. But for now, we want it to be absolute cell reference. Then you press enter. Then we copy the formula. And voila, it has computed based on the tax. So if now we double click, we are able to see that it is still making reference to C2, $C, $2. Now, there is nothing wrong in typing the $C, $2. If your keyboard F4 is not working or you're not able to see the function key, if you're using a different device, you can still type the $signs before the column and the row numbers. That will still work. Why is this important and why do we have to learn it? Number one, it makes sure that you are able to automate your work. If the rate tomorrow changes and you still have imported, you want to see the equivalent. Maybe the rate has gone to 120. You just come here and change to 120, USD rate to Kenya shillings, and then you press enter and the computation changes. Or if the dollar loses against the shilling and now it's the 75, then you press enter, then you can be able to see the effect. Again, if the tax changes, maybe from 16% now to 14%, and you press enter, then the tax are automatically computed on this side. So that's why it is important to use absolute cell references, particularly where you have constants that you may want to work with across multiple cells in a worksheet. So thank you so much for watching. I trust that after viewing this, you can practice and your working in Excel will become much easier and much better because now you know about absolute and relative cell referencing. Thank you and see you in the next lesson. Hi, welcome to another episode in Excel. We are learning Excel in these Teacher Joe's classes. Today we are going to learn about various functions in Excel based on the objectives that I have listed here, which commonly appears in the national exams that are done in the Kenyan colleges in the TVET sector. So welcome, my name is Teacher Joe Mwangi, and let's go together. So at the end of this lesson, we'll want to learn the following. One is to learn how to apply borders on the worksheet, add columns, and compute age. So there is date of birth, so that is a date computation. Add a column after each skill area and comments above 60, so we'll use an if function there. Then we'll do sorting. We'll do computation of average for each skill area and for each student. And then we'll set the screen area, print area to print only the worksheet from the names to the last subject to print center vertically and horizontally. And then we shall filter our female learners and paste them in a sheet 2 and rename the sheet as women in tech. So welcome and let's start. So the first thing is how to apply borders and shadings. Usually borders make work easier in terms of navigation. You want to see when you have a lot of data, because Excel can have over 64,000 rows and columns. You would want to have borders and shadings so that you can be able to differentiate the data between rows and columns. So the first thing you do is to select, and selecting is to click and drag across the range of cells. You select. Usually this is columns. Columns are labeled as in alphabets, and rows are numbered as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you select the entire range that you want. Once you have already selected that, then you come here, there is a shortcut here. You click the down arrow and choose the type of borders that you want. They have not told us what borders you want, but we can do all borders like that. But if you want to create emphasize, like in the first column, then you can choose a thicker border like that. Then let me put a different color so that it can be conspicuous. A thick border, and the line color, let me put red. So you can also draw it like I'm doing right now, like that, so that becomes a border. Or you can still select and choose the border that you want here. So that is how you put the borders. in a worksheet. If you wanted to make bold, just like in other application windows like Word, you can make it bold. You can increase the font size. You can increase the sizes of each column so that the text is not hidden. It's legible. You can do like that, and your work starts to look neat. So that is how you do it. The second question is to add a column to compute age based on the current date. So age, we have the date of birth for each of the students. So we add a column after date of birth. So to add columns, you select where you want the column to be added, like I've done. Then you come to insert command in the home tab, and then you choose insert sheet column. So once it does that, it moves all the content to the right, and then it creates a new blank column here. So here we'll call it age, and then we have to compute. To compute the age, we'll use a function called is equals to now, because now returns the current date and time. It's a function. In fact, what we can do is to put it in a bracket, is equals to now. Then you open the bracket like that. Then we subtract the date of birth. Then you close the bracket. And because the computer will return a numerical figure, but we want, it will return the numerical figure in days. We want age in years, so we can divide by 365, assuming that each year has 365. And then you press enter. Then you select, then you come to format, then you format cells, you choose a general number, and then you click OK. So this person is 2.4 years old, so you can remove the decimal places by these decreased decimals, and then we are able to see that. We repeat again for James Andrew, the second person here. We wrote is equals to, then we open the bracket, is equals to now, which is a function, minus, so now returns the current date and time. Then you press enter, the date of birth, then you close, then you divide by 365. Then it gives you a number which you format, and you format cells, and you select general number or number, and then 0 decimal places. Then you click OK. So that gives you the age of each person. I'm talking about the now function. Let me just put it in a separate cell here so that you see what it does. If you, in a cell, you type is equals to now, and then you open the bracket, and you press enter, it returns the current date and time. So right now is 3rd of June 2020, and it's at 6 minutes to 6. So now with that, you can now click and drag downwards. It can compute the age for each and every person going that way. So that is how we compute the age based on the current date. So here we could clarify and say that we are doing age in years, not days. So that is how we do it. The other task, which normally is a question that is asked in the exams for KNEC, add a column after each skill area. So the skill areas is programming, web designing, PC repair, and communication skill. Add a column after each skill area and comment as follows. Above 60 is competent, above 50 as more training required, and below 49 as not competent. So we'll start with programming. We insert a column there, and then we call it comment, and then we press enter. So we are told that if, so we'll use an if function, is equals to if, the logical test, if E2 is greater than or equal to 60, so the computer should write competent. So we open the quotation marks and write competent. put a comma, then if, sorry, let me repeat that. Then if, then we open the bracket, then the logical test is if E2 is greater than or equal to 50, then the comment is more training required. Then you put a comma. All the other cases is not competent. So we open and write not competent. In an ideal situation, you may not need to comment as not competent for a learner when you do the competence-based assessment, but for purposes of this lesson to learn about the if function, we are going to use it. So you see we have written is equals to if E2 is greater than or equal to 60. In other words, we have covered the first portion. Then the computer will return a value called competent. If E2 is greater than or equal to 50, so it filters, then it will return more training required, and all the other cases it will say not competent. Then you close the bracket. The computer color codes the brackets you open. The first one is a black one, and the second one is a red one. So at the end, we close the red and the black one. Then you press enter. So the computer has returned competent for the first person, and this one you can click and drag downwards to the last one, and you'll see those that have a score below 49, the comment is not competent, and those that are between 50 and 60, the comment is more training is required. So we have done that, and we can repeat the same for web designing. We select there, we insert a sheet column, and then we write here comment, and then we do the same. We start with the new function, but this time it's web designing. If G2 is greater than or equal to 60, then this student is competent. Comma, then if G2 is greater than or equal to 50, the comment is more training required, else not competent. Then you close the quotations and you close the two brackets, and then you press enter. So again, it does the same. That is how that lesson is about. So that is the if function. The two others, I'll leave it so that they can become your practicals for you to practice the skill of using the if functions. The second question, the third one, is sort the sheets in ascending order of names. Now, sorting, especially when you are sorting students' records or very important records, you don't want to distort the entire record. So Excel has a feature that detects the data set. For this one, you just click, because you are told in ascending order of names. Ascending order means that those that start with an A, like Ann Peterson, will become the first ones here. But we have to ensure that the sorting also carries their marks with them, the web designing that team. So you click where the names are, then you come to sort and filter. You click the down arrow here on sort and filter, then you choose A to Z, which is ascending order from the lowest to the highest. Then you click it, and it arranges the whole work. So if you go to Ann Peterson, we'll be able to see that even the score of that team has moved together with them. If you select a portion and do sorting, only that which you have selected would be sorted, and that can be dangerous because it it may distort the meaning of your information, which can give false records and can be catastrophic. So that is how we do it. Then compute the average marks scored in each of the skill area and for each student. So each of the skill area is up here for programming, for web designing, for PC repair, and for communication, and for each student. So for each student, we can start here, and we write average, press enter, and average, we use a function called is equals to average. Then you open the bracket, then we can select the first one, that is programming, we put a comma, web designing, we put a comma, because they are not continuous, they are not in the same range, so we can separate them with commas. And then communication skill. Once we have selected all the 4 skill areas, then we close the bracket and we press enter. So if we scroll, we copy the formula down, we move the mouse cursor to the bottom right and scroll and drag it downwards, it computes the average score for each of the learners in that TVET institution. For each of the course now, we can just create here a new row called average, and then for programming it will be easier now. We write is equals to average, and because this data is continuous, you can click and drag to select a cell range. So that is how you select a range. E2 full colon to E8, which you could also type, select an entire range, and then you press enter. So we can delete this. We had already demonstrated its use. So that is how you select, that's how you compute the average. So we can do the same for web designing. We do is equals to average. You open the bracket, you select the cell range. Once it is selected, you close the bracket, you press enter. The average is computed, and we can do the same for PC repair. Is equals to average, select the range, then we close and we press enter. So finally we can do the communication skills, is the same, is equals to average, then we select the range, then we close, press enter. So that is how we do the average computation. Set the print area to print only the worksheet from the names to the last subject and to print centered vertically and horizontally. So that is setting the print area. Number 1, you select what you are told up to from the names to the last subject. So last subject is here. Then you come to page layout, then print area, then you choose set print area. So that is the print area that will be set. But you come to the setup, page setup, then because we are told to print centered vertically and horizontally. So you come to margins and you tell the computer center on page vertically, horizontally, and vertically. Those are in the margins. So it's on page. You come to the page setup on the margins tab. This dialog box on the margins tab, you get horizontally and vertically. And then if you were to do a print preview, we should see how our work looks like. It is centered vertically and horizontally. And if you were to put this into landscape, possibly that data would fit the entire. So that is how you do that question. To print centered vertically and horizontally. Then filter all the female learners. So female, how do you know female? Let me separate the data first. So I want to insert a row there. Insert a sheet row so that the averages are separate. So how do you know female? In the gender. So you click somewhere there in the data, then you go to sort and filter, but this time you choose filter. Then there are these drop down arrows that appears in each of the columns where data is, and then you're told filter all female. So female on gender, you select female. You remove male, then you're left with female, then you click OK, and then we are told filter all female learners. Note that our text here has not been disrupted. Okay, it has not been disrupted because the computer has detected our data set. And paste them in sheet 2 and rename the sheet as Women in Tech. So selection again, you select the entire like that, then you go to copy, then you go to sheet 2, mine has data, so you go to sheet 2 there, then I paste, then the text comes to this sheet, so I just double click to increase the sizes and so that all content is visible. And then we were told to rename the sheet as Women in Tech. So how do you rename a sheet? You click it, you double click it, then you can just type Women in Tech. Then you press enter. You can even change a color as a bonus lesson. You can choose a tab color. Maybe women love pink. I don't know which color is pink. This is purple. Go to more colors, choose, this looks like pink, and you click OK. So that tab is Women in Tech, which is the one that we have done. So by doing those few tasks, we have covered various topics in Excel that all revolve around working with data, formatting, computations, and preparing document for printing, renaming worksheets, filtering, and sorting. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to our channel. More videos will be coming, and put your comments there for which you'd want to be taught. Thank you, and see you soon.